So you white and you in New Orleans celebrating Mardi Gras and you did something stupid. Now you going to jail. Next thing you know, you being booked in Orleans Parish Prison. Man, I feel bad for you. You don't want to come to New Orleans and go to jail. And you white and you're not even from here. Because even if you white and you from here, you got a better chance of getting by, but it's still probably going to be hard for you. Now, before you come down to New Orleans for the Mardi Gras, you could celebrate Mardi Gras in different places. New Orleans isn't the only parish that celebrates Mardi Gras. You could do it in St. Tammany Parish, Jefferson Parish. There's other parishes, St. Bernard parishes. They got parishes that have Mardi Gras. You can come down here, do something stupid because you were drinking and partying and wind up not just in jail, but in prison. That's right. Louisiana has the highest incarceration rate in the world. They will not hesitate to lock you up in Louisiana. You will do some time in Louisiana for doing something stupid. They don't care if you're from up north. They don't care if you're from California. They're going to put you in jail. And listen, let's say you've been to prison in California. It's a lot different in Louisiana and California. The same things don't apply. It's the wild, wild west in Louisiana. And you can get by, but you're going to have to handle your business. And you're not going to be able to depend on no cars because they ain't got no cars in Louisiana. They got neighborhoods. They got areas. You know, if you're from New Orleans and you're from the Ninth Ward, well, then you're going to be good because you're going to be with people from the Ninth Ward. If you're from Holly Grove, you're going to be with people from Holly Grove, uptown. Where Holly Grove is, then that's going to be your people. If you're from the West Bank, Marrero, you're going to be with Marrero. You might be from across the river on the East Bank. You're going to be with people from there. You know? But if not, you ain't from here. That other stuff don't matter. They only recognize in Louisiana, they recognize where you from, your neighborhood, your area. And if you white and you come here and catch a charge, you're going to have to figure out real quick how to get by. And Orleans Parish ain't the place you want to be. I never done time in Orleans Parish. I caught all my cases out of Jefferson, even though I did a lot of dirt in Orleans. I never did catch a case in Orleans. I caught a case in St. Tammany and Jefferson. But I knew a lot of my people growing up, you know, who went through Orleans Parish, especially as juveniles. And my brother, he went to City Youth Center in New Orleans when he was a juvenile. And I remember I used to go visit him with my mom. And he have a black guy, you know, he busted him out. And my brother, he was fighting. There wasn't no question about that. He'd go in there and fight. You know, he'd fight. He used to fight. Sometimes I asked him what happened, man. Me and this dude got in a one-on-one fight, which is cool. You know, you want to respect a one-on-one. But sometimes he'd get in a fight with somebody from, you know, a different project or something, and them dudes would jump on him. And sometimes he had people, because he was from the West Bank, and he wasn't the only one. So if you was from the West Bank in Jefferson, they might have sent you to City Youth Center because Rivard, that's one of them places, which is the juvenile lockup, was full. So they had other people from the West Bank. So if you had some dudes from Marrero, they were going to roll with you too from Marrero, and they'll fight against dudes from whatever, from the project and everything. So it just depends, you know what I mean? But he would fight and handle his business. I had some other white friends in the City Youth Center, you know, and they all got by, you know. I'm saying it was easy. They had to fight, you know, but they wasn't no punks. Now there was punks in there. I heard the stories about the punks, and I seen some punks in prison. You know, white people who don't handle their business. You got to handle your business. You got to be willing to fight. And if you're from out of town and you come to Louisiana, like I said, Louisiana has the highest incarceration rate in the world. We got a high incarceration rate than Iraq. We got a high incarceration rate than Afghanistan, North Korea, communist countries. It's harder to go to jail over there than it is in Louisiana. So if you come here and do something stupid in Louisiana, they're probably going to send you to jail. And when you get up the road as a white man, it's going to be different to do time. It takes you, you're going to have to figure out how it is, because it ain't like you hear other stories or you see on the movies where when you roll in, you know, your people come up to you, take you under the wing. They give you the lowdown. This is how it's going to be. Nobody might not walk up to you. I was 19 years old and I went up in the Louisiana Department of Corrections at 19 years old in a state prison. And no white dudes really walked up to me when I called, you know, because I got in a fight. And when I got in a fight, I had a dirty urine, which I really wasn't dirty. That goes to show you how low down they were. So they put me in the working cell block. And when I was in the working cell block, the solid white dudes didn't come up to me, you know, and say, hey, man, this is how it's going to be. They just watched me. I took a couple weeks and I was hanging out with punk white dudes who I didn't know was punks. And people who were getting played, two white dudes who were getting played, you know, and they were getting punked out, you know, sexually. I didn't know. But I was hanging out with them while we was working in the field. And it wasn't until I got in a fight with another dude and I handled my business that the other solid white dudes came up to me and said, "Say, man, why you hanging with them dudes?" I'm like, "Oh, man, they cool." And they told me about who these dudes were, that they were, punks. And so I had to figure it out a little bit on my own. And it was because I fought back that people were willing to respect me and then explain to me how things went. And then I started to figure it out. But it's going to be different if you're white and you're doing time in Louisiana. I'm going to tell you. So I hear different stories. I can only tell you because I've only done time in Louisiana. I hear stories about the East Coast. I hear stories about the West Coast, federal prisons, where in the feds and on the West Coast, they got different racial cars. But in Louisiana, it's not like that. I know people who've done time in Mississippi. Same thing. In the South, it's a lot different. So one thing you're going to see in the South is because it's such a small area, Louisiana, it's not big. The neighborhoods tend to be right on top of each other. A lot of the white people grew up hanging with the black people. They went to the same schools a lot of times. So they hung together on the street. So a lot of the white people are already going to be friends with the black people. So black dudes and white dudes in the Louisiana prison system tend to know each other or be cool with each other. But that's not the case all the time. Realistically, when you go up the road, predators and bullies are looking for a weak white boy. So if you're young and you white, anybody who done time in Louisiana who is young and white and went to the prison, they'll tell you, you're going to get tested. You're going to have to fight back. And 9 times out of 10, the person who's going to try to play you is going to be a black dude. So you're going to have to fight. You're going to have to fight. You're going to have to handle your business. They might try to play you sexually. They might try to, talk you out of your canteen, your store, your food tray. They just might try to bully you, pick on you, eventually to turn you into a punk. And sometimes they don't even have to fight the dudes to turn them into a punk. They just talk them out of it. So you got to fight back. You got to handle your business. You got to strap up. And sometimes a fist fight's enough. You're getting enough fist fights. Even if you can't fight, you're going to learn a little bit of skills, right? I mean, I couldn't fight. I still can't fight, but I'm not going to let nobody play me. And I'm always willing to fight. I always have been. And if I got to pick something up and use it to take it to the next level, and that's just what I got to do. That was survival. That was just the way it is. So another thing you're not going to be used to, sometimes you see a lot of white dudes from down south, they a little bit different. You're going to see a lot of them with the gold teeth. And another thing, a lot of white dudes grew up using the N-word down here. I was one of them. I grew up using the N-word. I used it all the way until I got out of prison. It wasn't until I was around 30-something years old, right in my early 30s, where I completely quit using that word. My whole 20s was pretty much in jail. And I grew up the whole time in jail. I used the N-word. I used it just like a black person would, as an endearing term, with my friends, Whites would use it toward each other, and if they were cool with blacks, they would use it. I've seen, there's been times where I was called out racially just because I was white, and they tried to, punk me out, punk white boy or whatever. And then I'll use a negative slur back to them. If you're going to call me something, because that's how it is. You fighting, you're not backing down, you're standing up for yourself. So you're going back and forth, But the reality is that if you're white and you're doing time in Louisiana, there is whites that stick with whites. That's just the way it is pretty much in any prison system, but it's not mandatory. You can sit down at the chow hall during lunch or dinner or breakfast or whatever, and you could sit at the table with blacks, and blacks could sit at the table with whites. You could intermingle. You could make hookups, which is, food together in the dorm. You could chop it up. You can hang out together. You could work out on the yard together. There's no rules against that. Actually, the way it tends to be in New Orleans or Louisiana jails is that you really stick with your rounds from whoever is around from where you're from. That's who you stick with. And you work out with that person or them people. If you're from, like I said, from the West Bank or the East Bank, you work out and hang out with people from the West Bank or East Bank. And eventually you build friendships with people who might be from up north, Baton Rouge, Shreveport, one of the country towns and, home or something like that in Louisiana. And you might be, you start getting cool with them and you start building relationships along. And, you start spending years and time with people, you start building relationship. But a white person and a white man can make it in Louisiana. But I've seen a lot of them not make it. And I've seen a lot of them be punks. The reality is that, a lot of white people tend not to fight back. But in Louisiana, I ain't going to say it's a small amount. I would say it's probably about, maybe half percentage of the whites are really solid and they'll handle their business, and the other half, are kind of either questionable or they straight up got them bad charges, sexual offense charges, or they just scared to fight. And when you got beef with somebody on the street, obviously when you get to prison, no matter who you are, whites tend to let that go and, look out for each other. You let the street beef go and you handle, you're cool in jail because you got to look out, because solid people are going to look out for solid people. That's just the way it is. So before you come down to Louisiana, especially during the Mardi Gras, and you think you're going to act up, rethink what you're doing before you make that stupid decision, because they're going to put you in jail, and chances are they're going to put you in prison. Like I said, Louisiana has the highest incarceration rate in the world. They will lock you up in Louisiana. Thanks for checking out. Give me a like and subscribe, and check out my new channel as I get this thing growing. I'm trying to build this channel up about all things crime and crime related, and ultimately how to live a successful life as a free, productive citizen in society.